let's finish up with your team. And to me, the biggest hype,
J-E-T-S, Jets, Jets, Jets.
the biggest hype train for them, especially because they're now on HBO Hardknocks. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, it's pretty sharp. Love to see that. They hyper show Aaron Rodgers in episode 1, but they were 7-10 last year, and we obviously knew it was due to quarterback play, and also I would say the injury to Brees Hall. But then Vegas doesn't think that's going to repeat because they have them at 9.5. They were bottom third in rushing attempts and yardage last year, and mostly due to the fact that they lost. Brees Hall was it week 4, week 5.
No,
they were.
it was week 7.
Oh, it was week 7. Week 7.
Against Denver.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking about? Maybe it was his really 4th or 5th real strong week because he started off slow in the season usage-wise. They were 6th in passing attempts, but 15th in yardage. So the opposite of what we've seen in these other teams in this division in terms of passing efficiency. They were very inefficient in passing. They threw a lot and didn't do a lot with it. So now you get Aaron Rodgers, the QB 12.
3 and outs all the time.
All the time, yeah. Well, now you got Aaron Rodgers, the QB 12 off the board. He was QB 13 last year, and that was a down year. He had 3,600, just under 3,700 yards. This was the lowest it had been in 5 seasons for him last year. He had 26 touchdowns, which again dropped him all the way down to the last time he was that low. It was 26 touchdowns. And he had 1 rushing touchdown himself. So to me, Aaron Rodgers has you can't argue that Aaron Rodgers has a better weapons per se than last year. Obviously, he has Garrett Wilson, but they bring Allen Lazard. They bring Randall Cobb. They bring in Hardman. They had Corey Davis. So he's got the weapons he needs to be successful that he's had in the previous seasons, minus obviously Devontae Adams. But what this team does have is it has a solid offensive line if they can stay healthy that can protect him and a good running game. And more than anything, it's this defense is going to keep him on the field and allow him more opportunities to score. And that's the one thing we didn't talk about with the Patriots is how good their defense is. This is another one of those situations where that defense and this Jets defense are going to keep their offenses on the field and allow for more opportunities.
Hey, fun fact. Aaron Rodgers, in the only season that he had a top 5 defense, won the Super Bowl.
There you go. Well, here's my question to you. Before we really get off Aaron Rodgers and start talking about the meat of this team, Aaron Rodgers to you, QB 12, do you think he's being drafted too high, too low? Because he's going above Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, but he's going below Tua, Dak, Deshaun, and Lawrence.
Yeah. So this is he is my dark horse for MVP, and it's not really a dark horse because I think a lot of people have have him on his mind. If you think he's going to have an MVP season, why is he being drafted at 12? Yeah. That's my question back to a lot of people.
Well, that's why you chose Peyton that one season because you thought he was going to have an MVP season, and boom, he does, and he throws 55 touchdowns
overall in a standard league. Like people, like you guys all thought I was crazy, and week 1 he threw 7 touchdowns. And I was like, yeah, you guys are in for it. And, there's something about a former MVP coming to a team with a ton of talent. And not just a ton of talent. They brought over his offensive coordinator and really close friend, Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
He won 2 MVPs with Nathaniel Hackett as his offensive coordinator. You don't think he knows this system? He knows his system, and he's able to teach these young guys. And the thing is with these young guys, and you see it in the Hardknocks, is that he instantly from day 1 came in and was the leader of that team. And everyone, defensive side, offensive side, they're all looking at him. So do I think, he's going to have better numbers than he did last year. Do I think he's going to throw?
I think so.
Do I think he's going to throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns? I don't. I don't think he's going to hit those numbers.
But he doesn't need to.
Yeah, he doesn't need to. They have a rushing offense. I do think that that's going to hurt his fantasy value in terms of knocking him or keeping him outside of the top 5. But he's going to be a top 10 quarterback.
But look at Geno Smith finished top 5 last year with his stats. Like when I read out Geno Smith's numbers to you real quick here, Geno Smith last year finished with where's his overall totals? He finished last year with
4,300 yards, 37 touchdowns.
42, 82. He had 30 passing touchdowns, 11 picks. Like, that is an easy mark for Aaron Rodgers to make. Like, rushing wise, he had another touchdown, and I think it was like 68 attempts for 366. So he ran a lot. But that being said, Aaron Rodgers could throw for 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns.
Yeah,
when you're saying
I'm not saying he can't hit those numbers. I think the only reason Geno was a number 5 finish is because there were some injuries to quarterbacks and big time quarterbacks. Like, let's just say Tua stays healthy, and let's say Lamar stays healthy. Both those guys are knocking Geno out of the top
and Justin
5.
Fields takes a step up.
Justin Fields increases his passing performance.
To me, then it's less about where they ranked, and it's about fantasy points wise. And that's what I'm saying is, Geno Smith was the first one out on the big numbers of fantasy points in the top 4.
Right.
When you talk about Aaron Rodgers, if you're getting him at QB 12, you don't need him to throw 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns because you're getting him at QB 12. You need Pat Mahomes to throw 5,000 yards.
I think he's being underdrafted for a lot of other guys that have these high ceilings. But I think that what we've seen, like last year's a perfect example of Aaron Rodgers. That's his floor. That is his floor. He's not going to get worse than that. All right. So if you're drafting him at the floor, which I think a lot of people are, this is what really baffles me about the fantasy football community is people will draft guys like Aaron Rodgers at their floor, but they draft Bijan at their ceiling. They draft young stars at their ceiling.
Yeah.
And that's what confused me is, like, you're not drafting Aaron Rodgers at his ceiling, because if you're going to draft Aaron Rodgers at his ceiling, his ceiling is MVP of the league.
Well, why not draft Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb at their ceilings? Saquon at his ceiling. Like, these guys are being drafted at their floors when, to me, it's like, is Eckler and McCaffrey, we're drafting them at their ceilings. That's why they're number 1 and number 2 off the boards. So I agree. Same thing with wide receivers.
Rodgers, absolutely. Like, if you want to go and draft him in the 5th round, go and draft him in the 5th round. If you want to go draft him in the 4th round, go and draft him in the 4th round. He has. It's not like last year where, like, there's so many question marks at what the weapons around him. Like, he has the weapons around him, and he has the offense and he has the defense around him. This defense is going to give him the ball back, so he's going to have plus chances to score. And we saw what this. Listen, the Jets, and we can transition, into the wide receivers or into the running backs now. But, like, the Jets had top fantasy guys last year with Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco playing quarterback. Now you enter a Hall of Famer who can throw the ball better than any of them, who understands this offense better than any of them.
Well, you're talking a Hall of. Let me just put this: you're talking a Hall of Famer that, besides the 2 seasons he had injuries where he only played 7 and 9 games each, and that was back in 2017, 2013, until last year has never finished below quarterback 9.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
So, let's talk about Breece Hall, because this is one that a lot of people have questions on, is where to draft him because of this. And last year he played 7 weeks 3 through 6. He was running back 14, running back 3, running back 4 in those 5 weeks. Because one of them, believe was he had week 5, 97 rushes and 100 receiving when he was running back 3. To me, the thing about him is he is a pivotal part of this offense. It's very difficult for me to go out there, though, and trust a running back coming off an ACL injury, no matter how good these repairs are and how good quick recoveries can be, to be as good and efficient and feel strong underneath his body. We've seen it with Saquon. We've seen it with pretty much everybody but Adrian Peterson, who just came out like shot out of a cannon. So what are your thoughts on Breece Hall? Where are you going to take him? And is it somebody that you want to take, or would you rather have one of your league mates and take him and pass on him?
Oh, no. I want Breece Hall. I just don't think I'm going to be in a position to get him, because I do think he's going to be an early 2nd round guy, and I think that's where he should be going. I think the ACL injury happened early enough in the season. It happened in the 7th week against Denver. So, and on week 8, after the inflammation went down, they did the surgery, they did the repair. He's had a long road to recovery. He's practicing, he's running. and he's cutting off of that. And I think he should be. I don't think he's actually practiced yet with pads with contact, but he is practicing and running drills. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. This is what I will say: if they bring in Dalvin Cook, that's the biggest hurdle for me with Breece Hall is if they bring in Dalvin Cook.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they bring in Dalvin Cook, it's going to be really hard for me to say that Breece Hall stays a second round running back. But without that, yeah, he's an early second round guy. If he's there at the end of the second, take him, because let's say it's the same argument with Javonte Williams, but it's a better injury to recover from, and he's in a better offense.
But Javonte's injury is built into his ADP. Breece Hall's is not.
Right.
That's the reason I asked that, because everybody's drafting Javonte Williams in like the 4th, 5th round.
But Breece had a clean tear in his ACL. Yeah. They did. It's I know that it's hard to trust guys coming off an ACL, but of all the injuries, of all the ways to tear your knee or to tear a ligament in your knee, he's had the easiest road to recovery. And again, he had early enough in the season where he had another 2 months to recover. This isn't OBJ. This wasn't late in the season. This was not even at the halfway point in the season where now he's able to recover. I do think that they do slowly transition him back. And I said this, I did a short on this, where I think you need to be patient when you draft him. If you draft, is he worth a second round pick? Yes. Are you going to have to be patient? Yes. Because I think you can start out the first 3-4 weeks of the season with a really slow start, but you draft him as a second guy, especially later in the season. If you are going and getting a top end wide receiver in the first round, then you go and get Chubb or Henry in the first round. This is a perfect guy to have as your number 2, and even as your number 1. You're just gonna have to be patient with him, because later in the season he's gonna not only win you weeks, but he can win you the league.
So let's talk about these other running backs then. In regards to that, would you recommend that if you draft Breece Hall, are you going to handcuff him with a combination of either Michael Carter, Zonovan Knight, or Izzy Abanikanda, or are you going to draft him as your number 2 and then grab somebody else a little bit earlier with value to have in your RB2 spot till he's ready and starts performing the way you want to perform?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to draft one of these guys as a handcuff, because I think that these guys all are going to be used in different ways. I think Izzy is my favorite one out of all of them.
Besides his name.
Abanikanda. Israel Abanikanda.
Squish banana.
I love this dude. He kind of, reminds me of Breece Hall in just that he has a nose for the end zone. We saw in the first 2 preseason games already. He's scored a touchdown in each one of them. He's had just some really awesome moves in between the tackles too. He's bouncing it outside, but he runs really well in between the tackles. So I think that, but they have a lot of depth there. We saw Zonovan Knight be productive last year. Michael Carter, I think, is the one that he's going to be used in a pass catching role, and he's going to be used in this offense. I think he's a very good weapon. But I wouldn't handcuff either, Breece Hall with any one of these. My preference would be to go and draft a guy like Connor, like Akers, and go and get a solid number 2 if he's my RB1. And if he's my RB2, then I can go and get Mozart for the first 3 weeks of the season, like in the 13th round, like we already talked about.
I'm with you. I'm not handcuffing anybody with this guy, because you hit the nail on the head with that. They all play a significant role. Nobody's carved out to be the clear number 2 guy quite yet. I think they all have their benefits. I mean, look at Bam Knight last
Eli
year
Mitchell. Too. Yeah, this isn't Eli Mitchell,
McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey situation where if anything happened to McCaffrey, Eli Mitchell is going to be the guy. Yeah. I think that they're going to use a lot of different combinations of people, and there's not really going to be a true handcuff because there's a lot of talent there.
Let's talk about the wide receivers in terms of these rooms here. You've got Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard,
transition there,
and then you have a mix of Corey Davis, Mecole Hardman, and Randall Cobb. So depth chart wise, you have Wilson, Lazard, and Corey Davis. Garrett Wilson is going as a wide receiver 11 right now. He finished the season last year at wide receiver 21. And he did that with the mixed bag of quarterbacks that he had in New York Jets. He finished with 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's going as a wide receiver 11 because he now has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. This guy I like. Unfortunately, in our league, he's kept. But in other leagues, too, you're talking about a guy that is going to be a second-round wide receiver pick that has an opportunity right there between Waddle, T. Higgins, and Devonta Smith. They're all going right around the same areas, which is crazy to think that 2 wide receiver 2s are being drafted around him there. My favorite wide receiver out of this group is Allen Lazard. And because of the value you can get him and what he can do for you off the bench or in your flex spot with the rapport he's built with Aaron Rodgers over his career. What are your thoughts on this wide receiver room? Give me a quick 1 minute on Garrett Wilson, and then who's your favorite second receiver out of this that you're going to look to try and draft?
Well, Garrett Wilson almost got a top 20 finish, and his quarterback play is that comparable. If you went to the dog park and opened up like the poop chute, and then you just grab like 5 bags out of that and just mix them together, that was his quarterback play. Okay, and he still finished as the offensive rookie of the year. So he, I know that there's been a lot of comps to hit him with Devontae Adams. He is this kind of guy, and you've seen it in. Go and watch Hardknocks. What I like more is the one jet drive. I think it gives a little bit more in depth to the players, but you see what kind of how Garrett Wilson wants to improve. How Garrett Wilson not just wants to be a great wide receiver, he wants to be a Hall of Fame receiver. And you're playing with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and he'll teach you how to do that. Like, he's played with guys that are going to go into the Hall of Fame, and so I think that his intelligence level, his athletic ability, like if I'm taking him over any one of those 1B guys.
Yeah, I would too. I would too.
I'm taking him over at Waddle. I'm taking him over Devonta Smith. I can make it. I can make an argument that I would take him over CeeDee Lamb. I would make an argument that I can take him over even AJ Brown. He's going to be in a more pass-heavy offense. So why wouldn't you not want the number one that's going to be there? And look at the numbers that he put up last year, and he only had 4 touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
So double that for number one receiver in a passing offense. Double that, okay? So you don't think he can easily be a top 15 guy, if not a top 10 guy? Like he's going to have the biggest jump out of any of these guys in the top 25. He's going to jump up into the top 10. I truly believe.
I could argue you could take him off over Amon-Ra St. Brown too. Like I could see his big playability compared to St. Brown's go that route. But again, like I agree, he's going one after Waddle. I would take him over Waddle, and he's already going ahead of Higgins and Smith, and he's as he should. So
the rest of the wide receiver room is really interesting too, because I think that this is again guys that are going to have roles to play. I really like Mecole Hardman. I liked him last year in Kansas City, and I really love his big playability, his track speed. He's really dynamic. I think they're going to find ways to use him and get the ball into his hands. Lazard is going to be a red zone guy, so for a guy that's going to get you the touchdowns, I think his ADP is really good because you can go and get him. If you miss out on Garrett Wilson, you can go get Allen Lazard, and he might be number 2 on the team in receiving touchdowns. But Corey Davis too. I mean, like a lot of people are forgetting about Corey Davis. And 2 years ago, I know, his numbers are. This a lot of the receivers that are coming out of New York, right? We saw Denzel Mims go to Detroit. We saw Elijah Moore go to Cleveland, and we've seen Corey Davis kind of be the lone guy that stays there. But a lot of these guys, they've been dealing with one of the worst passing offenses in the league last year. They were extremely inefficient, or in the last 2 years, I'll say. No, screw it. I'll say the last 5 years. This has just been a poor passing offense. And now you get a guy at the helm in an offense that they can run. They can not only run the football, but they can pass the ball and they can spread the ball around. I think Randall Cobb, I don't really want a piece of. I think he was brought in because of having a veteran presence in that offense and just to add some depth.
He's a waiver move if injury to everybody.
Yeah, I mean he can play anywhere, so I think it's a good move. But Mecole's the guy. I think the one guy that I've talked about. The rookie kind of to keep an eye on is Jordan Brownlee. I think he has had a lot of chemistry with both Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. And you can see kind of how Aaron Rodgers is excited to play with him. He's been making like not only the big play, but he's young and he's raw. And I think it's not going to be this year, but again, in dynasty leagues, in sleeper leagues, like in keeper leagues, late round keeper leagues, this is a guy that you could target and pick up off waivers if anything did happen. But I think Mecole is my guy. And
I like Brownlee too. I think Brownlee has an opportunity because he is sitting there on the depth chart behind Corey Davis right now. So I think this pathway to get in the game is higher up there just for the sheer fact that, hey, Corey Davis can't stay healthy that often either. That's been one of his struggles in his career. But, Mecole Hardman could be also the one that's right in there because he's the one behind Garrett Wilson. Why not throw him right in there too? So I agree. I think, to me, Lazard is the one guy that's draftable because he probably has the immediate flex playability because of the touchdown opportunities. I mean, he had 60 for 788 yards and 6 touchdowns last year on the Packers, and that was with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson playing around him too. So he has an opportunity. We'll finish up the Jets here with Tyler Conklin. Just brief because to me, I know everybody wants to say like, oh, well, Aaron Rodgers loves his tight ends and threw to his tight ends a lot. I just don't know if that's going to be a situation here in New York. Conklin's a great receiving tight end. I like him a lot. And then you also have Uzoma. Again, you throw these guys right into the middle of that pile. He's going to tight end 33. It's a crapshoot. But we do know that Aaron Rodgers has had an affinity for his tight ends. Mercedes Lewis in the past. Was it Richard Rodgers had the big touchdown catch, a couple of years back. And then he had, I'm drawing a blank on his tight end.
Jimmy Graham was there for a year.
Jimmy Graham. Who's the guy that had the injury last year that had a great season before that? Robert Tonyan had a great opportunity too. So it is somebody that you can pack, if you want to take a chance on Aaron Rodgers throwing to his tight ends and that success, grab Conklin as your second guy to pair with somebody else to see if it works. Why not? It can't hurt.
This is actually like this is probably the best tight end room in the NFL. They have 4 very talented, two young guys and 2 veterans that I really like. Unfortunately, the Jets have traditionally been a team to avoid the tight end position because they just don't target them that much. But Hackett's offense does, and Aaron Rodgers does. And there are 2 guys in particular that I really like here. And now you can have the same argument that we just had for the Patriots and put it right into the Jets here. I think CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin are going to have years this year where they're going to have very productive numbers. And one of those guys are going to finish in the top 15. I don't think they're going to finish in top 10, but I think one of those 2 guys is going to finish in the top 15. And the other guy is probably going to be a top 25. We saw it yesterday in the preseason game that there were 3 touchdowns scored, and all 3 of them went to a tight end. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's telling of what this offense is going to be. And all of them were the red zone targets are what was great. They're all red zone targets, and they were all red zone targets to the tight end. Yeah. So